Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I was really excited to come down. You could have done something about the weather, but other than that. And I love Shan's mention that the way to deal with invasive species is to eat them. I do want to point out that although ticks are invasive, plus their pathogens are invasive, that would be one exception where I don't actually recommend eating the ticks. Okay, so security alert, that's not unusual for me, in fact. I think if you press OK, it'll either detonate or we go ahead. Either way. Okay, so the official title is on the ceiling, which is just fine. The unofficial title is Ticks, Why You Want Them to Socially Distance from You and What Happens If They Don't. And here's the reason. That's a tick. And if you don't do anything about the tick, it's eventually going to find you, and yes, you would shake in fear, as has been brilliantly demonstrated. And it'll bury its mouth parts. That's what the mouth parts actually look like. It's a big spiked harpoon, and it shoves it into your skin, slurps your blood, and then regurgitates all the spare water that's in your blood that it doesn't want. And if it peed it out the other end, you'd notice the tick, so it just squirts it back into you. You get to be lunch and the toilet at the same time. Isn't that wonderful? So the obvious solution is you get a whole bunch of little tiny masks, and you're going to go through the forests of Nova Scotia and place the mask on the tick. And that will solve the problem, right? No more ticks. But the problem is, of course, we're allowed to take our masks off when we eat or drink, so that's not going to work. Shoot. So that leads us to the question, which is a slightly more serious question, which is what you can do to protect yourself, your family, your pets, and your community. So what I'm going to do here, and as Troy mentioned, the importance of communication and sharing knowledge. As a typical university person, my knowledge is very deep but exceedingly narrow. So I'm going to restrain myself. I'm going to tell you about ticks, and I'm going to try to take it easy on the tick biology, but revolting as they are, I actually do find them really neat and cool. But I'll try to restrain myself and provide some practical advice on how to protect yourself. Okay, so this is the bit I enjoy. I'm going to revolt you all by telling you about ticks for the next 10 minutes. And it's okay, you had lunch about an hour ago, so everyone's digested it. So, why do we care about ticks? Ticks take blood, they squirt in pathogens. They're so good at it. They're little crawly bags of pathogens. They're members of the spider family, they crawl around, and they squirt in a greater variety of viruses, bacteria, and ciliate pathogens than any other organism on the planet. Isn't that lovely? Now, mosquitoes, we all know and love mosquitoes, are actually causing more disease, but that's just because there's so many mosquitoes in the world. And if someone could get rid of mosquitoes, I'd be all totally on board. So the issue with ticks, even though there are more mosquitoes than ticks, there's still a lot of ticks. This is a picture sent to me by a mother in Lunenburg, a picture of her child's head, and the subject line of the email was, "Is this a problem?" My suggestion would be that the answer was yes. So congratulations, Nova Scotia, you have the highest density of ticks to humans in Canada. Yay! Aren't you? Isn't that wonderful? I mean, I could be smug, except that, I live right on these borders, so yeah, it's bad here. It's bad everywhere. Okay, so for some global context, in North America, and we don't have the stats in Europe, but probably similar, I have no idea why there's a K on the end of America. I've never noticed that. In any case, in North America, Lyme disease infections are actually 6 times more prevalent than HIV infections. And if you think about the level of social knowledge, social awareness about where we're teaching kids about safe sex from an early age, and all the prevention processes that have been normalized in society through the efforts of public health, we need to get to that point and then exceed it 6-fold for Lyme disease. All right, just a quick Note here about population expansion. This is New Brunswick because that's where I hang out, and I get into less trouble working on ticks in New Brunswick than in Nova Scotia. So this is ticks in New Brunswick in 2001, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and so forth. More red stuff happening. So yeah, more ticks. They're spreading north. They got to Nova Scotia by coming up the eastern seaboard of the States. They landed. They loved it here, and who wouldn't? But they've been breeding and creeping around. So now you have a province where you have a choice between being at medium risk or the highest risk that you can get. So yeah, there are a lot of ticks. They like it. As an aside, while the black-leg ticks, they're the ones that cause Lyme disease, those just happened. Someone actually intentionally imported the American dog tick. I've yet to figure out why they thought it was a good idea. Okay, tick life cycle. I could spend a lot of time on this. I won't. I'm going to start by saying, just to save time, they start small, they get bigger. The small bits are the eggs. Any self-respecting, fully engorged female tick will lay about 3,000 eggs, which is why their populations can expand rather rapidly. Not every single one of them will hatch, but still, they do. And if you've ever seen a clutch of spider eggs, tick clutches look like that too, but they're not as obvious because they're in the leaf litter. They hatch out as little baby ticks, they take a blood meal, they get bigger, take more blood, get bigger, etc. Eventually turn into adults, have a great romance on the back of a passing deer or a mouse, and make more ticks. It can take them 2 or 3 years, depending on how easy it is to find blood, and they actually do really well over winter. We may think, oh, it's minus 30 out, it's got to kill them all. Nah, they're actually perfectly fine over winter in the leaf litter, unfortunately. So some pictures of ticks, just because I like to show pictures of ticks. On top we have a nice, juicy, fully engorged female. On the bottom we have a male. The males are smaller because they've got less, they don't have to make eggs, less work to do. Frequently you find the male stuck to the bottom of an engorged female. So someone will say, what's this other guy sort of sitting on it? Well, we'll discuss this gently, what they're actually doing, but the point of the exercise is to make more eggs. Just to be weird and perverse, the eggs are made in what we would consider the throat area, and if you knock their heads off, the eggs will come shooting out. Yeah, why not? This is unlikely to run. This is a cartoon of what ticks do, so I'll just talk through it. Your tick is known as an ambush predator. What that means is they don't go chasing after you, except for the Lone Star tick, which is being introduced here, which does chase after you. But except for that one, what they do is they get up in the morning and they slowly crawl up a blade of grass. When you have coffee, they crawl up a blade of grass. It's all good. We must be respectful of people's life choices. Then they hang on with their back legs. They stick their front legs out. They can actually smell you with their front legs. They wait till you go by, and then they grab you. Now, once they grab you, they're going to walk very slowly across your skin, so slowly you don't feel them as they push up around your hairs. They find a nice, warm, cozy, dark spot. They want a dark, cozy, warm spot that you won't notice because they're going to feed for the next 3 to 7 days. So, when I talk about tick checks, think about it this way. You're getting on them, they're getting on you about the first foot. They don't crawl very high because they don't have a lot of energy. So they're getting on you sort of ankle height. They're going to crawl upwards. They're looking for warm, dark, cozy. You guys work it out. That's where you're going to look for ticks. All right, once they find a nice bit, they plunge their mouth parts into you. They're slurping up their blood. Once they get some blood, they squish the water back into you along with all the disease-causing pathogens inside of them. Once they've done that for 7 days, they get big and they just drop off and they go forth and get on with their life. Okay, What kind of ticks do we have to worry about? There are lots of different species of ticks. Many of them, because they hang around animal burrows, they're only impacting animals. So we've got lots and lots of ticks that are specialized on the wild hares, but we don't get them on people very much unless you make a habit of shoving your head or your arm into a rabbit hole. These are the guys you do see because they'll take blood from anything. Blood is blood. So we got your black-leg tick, also called the deer tick, though it'll feed on anything. We got the groundhog tick, which looks just about the same unless you're a specialist. And we've got the American dog tick, also known as the wood tick. That's a little bit bigger and has some white on the back. These are the guys we commonly find. In Nova Scotia, the ticks that people notice are about 2/3 the black-leg ticks, which are unfortunately the problem, and about 1/3 these guys. The only good news about this is that if you have to have a tick feeding on you, this is the one you want. So if you want an amoric, white spots on the back is good, insofar as it can be good. Question?
That middle one is a black-legged tick?
It is.
Doesn't have black legs, right?
I know, that really annoys me. The legs are actually dark brown. And it's even worse with the western black-leg tick, which at least you find in the west. Okay, so far so good, but its legs are even paler. Yeah, sorry about that. I wasn't responsible for naming these guys. Okay, so how did the ticks get here? I mentioned that they are brought in. They're largely brought in from warmer climates. So the tick population in Canada is essentially brought up from the south. This is a map of Lyme disease related deaths, just to make the point. It can be serious. They're brought up on things that move faster than a tick. Left to its own devices, a tick will travel about 1 meter in its life, so that's not going to cause a problem. The problem is if it grabs onto a bird and the bird's migrating, that will take it long distances, and then locally it'll move around on small mammals like mice and big mammals like deer. So they spread. So what happens? We start by getting an infected tick brought in from a highly endemic area. And that tick feeds on something like a nice cute shrew. It passes the infection onto the shrews, and then some local ticks that are not infected take blood from that tick. They get infected, take blood from those infected shrews or mice or whatevers. They get infected, and then they pass it on to the cute puppy or the people who actually have to work out in the forest, who I'm sure could be considered cute, but I'll leave that to their families. Okay, that's ticks. No one would care about ticks other than being slightly revolting if they didn't cause pathogens, and I see someone with a hand up.
Are these little dogs, are the little dogs able to get medication from the vet to fight against these ticks?
Yes, there are excellent tools for your pets, and I'm going to talk about some of the tools for your pets. So at least the cute puppy's okay. So ticks carry a lot of nasty things you don't want. We care about Lyme disease. I'm going to quickly mention that it carries another bacterial disease, which is coming up in a big way. Well, it's coming up in Nova Scotia faster than anywhere else in Canada. Again, congratulations. But BC, where you're slightly behind Ontario. Like, come on, guys. And a few other things. We care most about Lyme disease because it's the most common of the tick-borne pathogens, and it also, in combination with tick saliva, depresses the immune system, so it sets the stage for other infections. So this is fresh off the press, not actually being released yet, data on what we're finding in ticks from Nova Scotia. We're getting a lot of Lyme disease, yeah. Province-wide, it's about 16%. Certain areas around New Glasgow, Pictou, we're getting little pockets where up in 40%. Lunenburg, to be honest, when I'm in Lunenburg, I just stay on the sidewalk. I'm very sorry for the people who live there, but The people of the South Shore are also experts on living with ticks, and I'm in great awe of how that's happened. But we're also seeing, in Nova Scotia, we're seeing anaplasma coming up. That's a nasty thing, infects your red blood cells, can induce various problems, including various types of anemia. I've not got the viruses on here, those are coming up too, and we're starting to get some more of the other parasites, or the other pathogens. But Lyme disease, it's a bacteria. It's a particularly unusual one. They're cute, they're spiral shaped, but they come in different shapes. The different shapes make them hard to identify. They also can go into a dormant resting shape, which they sort of curl up and get all defensive when you take antibiotics. And then if you don't take them long enough, they just spring out and off they go again. They also have the really unfortunate property of they love cells with lots of fats, and that includes things in nerve tracts in the brain, so they love neurons. This is a brain cell, and the green blobs are all the Lyme disease bacteria just partying out on that cell. And if you think about it, one place you don't want bacteria would be your brain. The other place you don't want bacteria is pretty much anywhere else. There are many different species of the Lyme disease bacteria. They're mapped out in the United States. The mapping in Canada is well behind. The practical significance of this is that if you go in for a Lyme disease blood test, it's designed to pick out sort of Lyme disease 1.0, but not the other species. Okay, so we have a problem. It starts with a tick, and what are we going to do with it? Because they're here, they're not going anywhere. So this is the bit where we move into the practical advice. Best thing you can do is not get a tick bite. If you get a tick bite, detecting it early and getting the tick off you is your next best choice. And if all else fails, you want to be treated early rather than late, because once you have damage, it's harder to deal with it. Okay, so prevention. To know about prevention, you have to know where you're going to find a tick. This one's really quick and easy. Everywhere. All right, they like long grass, they like short grass, they like forests, inside forests, edges of forests. They like boggy areas, which they're not supposed to, but no one told the ticks. So basically the entire Maritimes, which is largely agricultural, small-scale agriculture, which has been reverted to a more wild state, is tick habitat. When are they active? It used to be that you just had to worry about it in the spring and the fall. These are the peak seasons where people find ticks. The spring bump and the fall bump. That's the data for Nova Scotia. But effectively you can find ticks 12 months of a year. Thank you, climate warming, for that. Largely because there are always places where it doesn't freeze, even in deep snow. There are places where there is still running water. The wildlife uses that. And where you have wildlife, they're going to be dropping off their ticks. This is, of course, a place that people will find in the forest if you're working in the winter, or also people hunting and trapping are going to be around these areas. Okay. This is standard public health advice. I've taken it straight off the public health website. So the avoid areas where ticks live makes sense for an urban population. If you're employed in the forest industry or living in a rural setting, you can just forget the first one. Walk in the middle of trails and avoid contact with tall grasses. Sorry, in my secret other life, I'm a farmer. There are no pathways on my farm. So we're stuck with insect repellents. The most effective one is Icaridin, which is a synthetic form of picaridin. Don't worry about the details, just read the label, and if it says it works against ticks, it probably is right. Remember to apply it more frequently because ticks are less turned off by repellent than mosquitoes, so just keep more is better. Okay, you can treat your clothing. That works really well. Don't roll in the grass. Getting people to tuck pants into their socks just doesn't work. I'm a big fan of rubber boots because it does the same thing and it keeps my feet dry, which I'm not wearing right now, but I thought showing up in rubber boots was a bit country. Okay, so repellents, you can buy commercial products. I've blacked out the name of said commercial product because I don't want to be promoting one product versus another. They're readily available. Read the label. Apply as recommended. They're natural tick repellents, less regulated. With all the natural tick repellents, they use volatiles. They smell better, but it means you have to apply it more frequently because as the fact that you smell it means it's evaporating off your skin. For your pets, important. We have a lot of products that are good to protect dogs and cats. You have topicals, you have edibles. This isn't my dog, but it could be. The edibles are, according to my dog, so tasty that not only are they lovely, but a few fingers with them just makes it that much better. There's also a vaccine for dogs in high-risk areas. Using all these tools together works fairly well. For people, we're going to move on to the question of how you protect yourself. So there are no edibles. Vaccines is a whole debate, but there's nothing on the market now, so I can just skip through that whole debate. So we're left with this protective clothing. Light-colored clothing allows you to see little black things on you. That does not mean you need to break out your bridal whites when you go working on your woodlot. This is the one time I am promoting it because Mark's Work Warehouse was the first to, I'm not promoting it, but I'm mentioning a brand name. They have Permethrin treated clothing. It's pricey, but it'll last through several washes. Failing that, you can make your own Permethrin treated clothing by buying a clothing bee permethrin, applying the two. The stuff is nasty when it's wet, so don't spray it on yourself or any pets. Or you can just buy it. You can treat around your household to keep the ticks at bay. What you're really worried about is mice, because mice are what is providing infection to the ticks plus bringing them inside. So if you get rid of mice, you can help your local tick situation. There are experimental trials with sort of de-ticking whole areas. Those are being conducted in the States. They're ongoing. They're also looking at rodent vaccines. And it's a rather nice idea. The idea is that if you drop a lot of vaccine bait, the mice eat it, they get rid of Lyme disease, then the ticks don't have Lyme disease. And if there's no problem with vaccine hesitancy, if you're a mouse, it's bait. They'll eat it, and if a mouse has side effects, it's a wild mouse. Who cares? All right, so that's the prevention stuff. You can prevent all you want. It's not going to be 100%. So at the end of the day, you are looking for things on you that weren't there before. You will soon get used to the difference between a mole and a tick. The difference is that the tick wasn't there before and a mole doesn't have legs. I assure you, you can get someone to help you, or you can just use a mirror. I assure you, looking at yourself in the mirror every night is probably not going to be the most exciting thing you do, but then frankly neither is brushing your teeth, and we mostly all do that too. It's just something you do. Places to look. This is a very nice public health image where they've decided to go for a delicate situation by removing all the naughty bits. But you're looking down there, armpits, under the breasts, around the waist, behind the knees. And here is their helpful suggestion about how to see some of those spots. Okay, so that's dealt with prevention, early detection, and treatment. Treatment is a whole difficult topic. I'm going to actually end with testing for a couple reasons. One is that I'm running out of time, although that clock so far has told me I have 20 minutes, 12 minutes, and now 9 minutes. So I'm going backwards in time. That's totally good. So again, public health advice. Wordy, you may not want to read through this when you're panicking. There are a number of useful things in it, but I'm just going to go straight to a picture. This is CDC advice, where they tell you not to put nail polish on the tick. I've never known who walks through the forest with a bottle of nail polish, but I'm sure there's someone. Also, do not use kerosene, and if this is hyperlinked, and if you click on it, it goes to a special warning pages that tells you not to, once you have put kerosene on your tick, not to apply a match. My guess is that if you're going to do that, Lyme disease is not a problem. You have other worse problems. All right, so here's the basic idea. Okay, let's see if I can use, sorry. We're figuring out whether I can press buttons. But I have to press, Hey, interesting things are happening. All right, I'm not going to touch anything for the next moment. What I want to point out here is that if you have a tick on you, your concern is to remove the tick. Do not keep it as a souvenir of your lovely walk in the forest. The ideal way of removing it is with pointy forceps that you pull it out close to the head, so you don't want to squish the back end into you, because that just squishes all the tick goop back into your bloodstream. On the other hand, if it happens, it happens. There are specialized tools that you can use, tick twisters, tick pullers, what have you. I'm not a big fan of them ever since I put one in a back pocket and sat on it. It was plastic and it snapped, but that's just me. You can also use your fingernails. The standard advice is, depending where you are, either send the tick in for testing. Public health used to offer testing, they don't anymore for various reasons, or to keep it in case it needs to be tested later. So, I'm going to tell you briefly about testing, and then we'll end there. One thing I do want to mention is that there is no safe feeding time. The longer the tick is on you, the more chance it has to transmit pathogens. The one good thing about Lyme disease is it does take a while to be transmitted. The viruses the ticks have and the other pathogens go in faster, but Lyme disease takes a while to go in. So in the first day, there isn't a huge risk. As long as that tick didn't get started earlier on a mouse or a squirrel, get groomed off, and it was just sitting around waiting for you to finish its meal. So you don't really know what a tick did before it decided to snack on you. It's also really hard to figure out exactly how long a tick has been on you, because you haven't, unless you're sitting there watching it start to feed, in which case take it off before it starts. You don't really know when it started to feed, because you haven't felt them and it's been in a nook or cranny that you haven't been watching. So basically get it off as soon as you can and take it seriously. First thing you want to do once you get it off is try to figure out what it is. You can, so bad are the black-legged ticks, which have dark brown legs, despite their name. Better are the dog ticks with the little white patches on their back. You can get it identified by sending a picture of it to eTick, or just by sending it to me. We both have a within 24 hours turnaround, and there's no charge for it. If you want to not take the wait-and-see approach, you can get it tested. We used to do tick testing for free and it wasn't free. It's never free. We had government money. then we ran out of government money, so we had to go to a commercial operation. And isn't that a clever pun?
Yes.
Yeah. I couldn't think of anything better. Anyway, so there you can get test results in 1 to 3 days. 3 days is fine. You have up to a month before you get sick. So, although you can pay more to get the results faster, it's not really worth your money. You can tell why I am not a salesperson for the government. Don't spend your money on that. Go for the budget option. You can also choose to get tested for Lyme disease or other things. Again, that's your choice. Lyme disease is the most frequent problem. Okay, so that's the basic idea, is prevent it. If a tick does get past your defenses, get it off you early. Figure out if you're at risk, because if you get ill, there are going to be consequences. If you do get ill, try to get treated. Getting treated early is better than having long lingering symptoms that are much harder for you and your doctor to figure out. With that, I'm going to fast forward through this. Pictures of rashes. I know everyone's excited to see rashes. I'm going to end with the fact that we live in an incredibly beautiful place. We need to be outside. We need to enjoy it. We work outside. So knowing about ticks is just part of life, and we can protect ourselves and keep going with our life. And despite my quip about not eating ticks, this is still my favorite slide. It's a recipe for engorged tick scones, but I do want to point out it's a joke. If anyone's got any questions or whatever, if you don't have questions and you want to know about the tick testing, I brought in some brochures. If you don't want the brochures, that's fine. You can find us online, or you can just ignore this whole thing.